What's up, guys? It is Paul, the MMA Shark, and I'm coming at you today very happy to be joined with one of my favorite UFC fighters, one that I have known a long time, ever since he was on the regional scene, none other than Charles Inner G Johnson. Charles, welcome to the MMA Shark.
What's up, man? How we doing, baby?
Good. How you been? How's everything going? How's camp going?
Camp's going great. Everything's going well. We had a nice little 8-week, 7.5 week timetable to be able to peak at the right moment and take everything and the efforts we put in last camp, translate them over. So camp's going great. We're peaking. We're starting to peak right around the right time, not too early, not too late. And so we're just feeling great. A little tiresome, it's still 2.5 days, 2 days, 2.5, 3 days. So but we're tailoring back, so my body's starting to feel good.
That's great. That's awesome. And for those that don't know, Charles has a huge fight on the Derek Lewis Sergey Spivak card on November 19th. He's taking on Zhalgas Zhumagulov in a very big flyweight fight. I love this matchup for you, not to instill too much confidence in your head. The betting line's not out yet, and I think you're going to be a massively large favorite in this fight. How do you like the matchup compared to the first matchup the UFC had given you?
I think it's a sufficient matchup. Every matchup at flyweight right now is pretty, for me, it's gonna be a good matchup in my opinion. You only got a few guys that wrestle at a really high level. Wrestling is the one thing in MMA that can cause problems for people. Everything else, I feel like you can find your way around. Jiu-jitsu, unless they're pulling guard and jumping on you, squeezing, which at flyweight's kind of hard to do once
Sure.
you get sweaty. And then high level strikers, sometimes you just can't find a way to get close enough to even do it. So I think wrestling is that one thing that balances the table. So there's not many guys who wrestle at a high enough level to keep me from doing everything that I want to do to people. And I'm also getting much better at my wrestling each camp. It's something that I've really dedicated myself to since becoming a pro athlete. And people wrestle their whole life and they're just regular at it.
Right.
So it's something that I definitely put a lot of time into, effort into, and I love. I was an all-state wrestler in high school, only wrestling for 5 years. I had never wrestled before the time I was 14, 15, going on 15, before I was going to high school, and I fell in love with the sport, and I've always loved it. So outside of those few guys that can wrestle, I just feel like the weight class is in such an exciting place
It is.
that no matter who I get matched up with, I can go out there and I have such a high skill in each area now. Now I'm just starting to be able to be creative and learn. Like, I got a teammate on my team who's like a taekwondo. He's been doing his whole life. He's teaching me the actual art of it and how to do certain things and what to think and how to move people with my feet to land these kicks, just to add on to the boxing and wrestling, jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai that I have now. Things like that I get. And I'm in a camp where there's a lot of wrestling.
Right.
So
And you really showcased the wrestling defense in your debut. A short notice fight versus Makayev is not something people are jumping at, but you were able to get up 11 times in that fight. You had his back in the third round. You're a 5-round fighter. If that was a 5-round fight, you're winning that fight. To lose a debut in that fashion is really not the end of the world. Your stock definitely didn't go down in that fight. Coming into that, you were just killing people in LFA. You knocked out Carlos Moda, who just made his UFC debut. That was an epic, epic fight. 5-round fight. You were never not in control of it. You knocked out Yuma Hiraguchi. You choked out Carly Pangilian. So, you definitely earned your way to the UFC. The Makayev fight, a lot of people thought that it was going to be a Makayev quick knockout. And I never thought that was the case because no one's putting you away inside the cage.
no, I'm never gonna be finished in there. And it's some things in life. I'm the guy who lives by certain values and certain virtues in life, but um And I've always been a person to say I don't like talking in absolutes, but when it comes to MMA, I'm never gonna be finished.
I can't argue that, everything I've seen. So let's go back to March 31st of 2018. I met you that week. You fought for me, Fight Week, PAKH Fight 28. You came in 6-0. You're the only flyweight in the country that would take this fight versus Sean Santala. And, you were the main event. The place was packed. It was probably one of the larger crowds you had fought in front of at that point in your career. I think we had 2,400 people at it. And that was one of the best main events I've ever promoted in my life. I thought you won the fight.
Yeah, and many people in the venue did too as well. And I fought on a bum knee. I had a grade 2 LCL sprain like 2 weeks earlier, so it was a tough pill to swallow with my coach, but it was also a lesson, learned. So I, as an amateur and as a professional, I fought in we have arena, an indoor football arena where they just sell tickets for parking. So I had fought in front of bigger crowds and actually competed in track and field in front of bigger crowds.
Sure.
So the main and everything was something I was used to, and it was about I'm never afraid to fight anyone, and for me, I'm always looking for that guy that has a name or that guy that has like if they want to fight, let's fight,
Sure.
Same before Jimmy Flick got signed and he's gonna be fighting again here in January, which I'm very excited for him. I love watching him fight as well, being a Midwest boy,
He's got
but
sick
um,
triangles.
he's just got good jujitsu. If he grabs you, he's stick right. He's like snot. So that's what my old coach would say. So I look at guys and I love fighting, man. I'm here to fight. So if there's an opportunity for me, it's something I learned as an amateur and growing up in track and field. If there's an opportunity for me, I'm never gonna step over it, no matter how small, because I learned that anything can come from the smallest of opportunities.
Absolutely. And like
I'm
I said,
sorry, my yard work outside if it gets a little
oh,
loud
no,
here.
that's totally okay. And like I said, when I was trying to match him for that fight, nobody was taking the fight. Like, there's people in the UFC now that would not take that fight, and they've evolved to the UFC. But you certainly paved your own path. Definitely earned it. You didn't even have to go through Contender Series or tough to get on it because you paved your way. That knockout over Moda in the LFA fight. I mean, that venue went nuts, and it was in your hometown, right?
Yeah, I had my last two fights in the LFA in my hometown of St. Louis. I defended my title twice.
You know,
Um,
and
yeah,
the
it was
MMA Shark community, you're one of the fighters that I always get right on their fights. I had you as a slight favorite to win and to win by finish over Moda, and I had you to win by Hiraguchi. They're the only two fights that had lines. And then the Makayev fight, I went with the over in the fight, which cashed. So, people thinking that Makayev was going to put you out, I never thought that was going to happen. I thought it was going to be a very close fight, and it was. He secured a lot of takedowns in the fight, but did nothing with them. And for a UFC debut, your stock only went up that night. That's all I can offer. I mean, his two other opponents he put away. Malcolm Gordon he did struggle a little bit with, but you had a lot more for him than Malcolm Gordon did. And obviously your UFC debut is not going to be a 5-round fight, but 2 more rounds with him, you would have won because he was done by the end of that 3rd round.
Yeah, he was feeling it after the second, and I could tell. And he just has really great wrestling. You got a kid who's been under he's been kind of sheltered and put into a position to be successful since he was 8, and 12, being over in the UK and having access to the Russian national wrestling team and
Right.
just get guidance. So I knew that grappling, I was never going into it like I'm a better wrestler. I'm gonna be prepared was my biggest thing. I said I'm just gonna be prepared for that. So I went out and I was wrestling with Jordan Burroughs in Philly for a month,
Nice.
and Then I came back here, and Nick Simmons in Michigan, he was the last person to defeat Henry Cejudo in a wrestling match.
Yeah.
And so he has a facility here that our MMA gym, Murcielago MMA, trains out of. And my head coach is more of a boxing background, but he's been in this game. He's got a long tooth in his game, and he understands it really well. So we prepared really well for that fight. The fight is always the fight, and I look back at it. It was moments where I could have changed the course of that fight, but it I did find myself I kind of zen myself out, was a little too calm, wasn't worried about anything. And I never really switched the killer mentality over. I was defending everything. And I learned a lot from that fight. And also that whole week, I was just really trying to not only embrace the fact that I came from St. Louis, Missouri, which has been the murder capital of the US for about 8 years now.
Yeah.
And by capita, and I come from a place where you have to really earn everything that you get. And I was proud of myself. I was in the moment, but it was just like, wow. That whole week I was like, just make the right impressions, let everybody know exactly who you are, and just be yourself organically. So I was really cognizant of that the whole week. And when I walked in the cage, I was hoping to feel more emotion, but I wasn't. And as the fight progressed, it was kind of just like it was killing a lot of time, which I knew would happen if I allowed that to happen. And I knew that his style, a lot of time can get burnt. So
Yeah.
to say that I don't feel like I lost a fight. I feel like I lost a grappling match
I agree.
where, we showed up to practice and we had a hard wrestling day, and I just wasn't able to get out from control, grips really, but I wasn't in danger, like if we're having a grappling day and the coach tells you to go for submissions and you never get submitted and you never have anything really threatening you, but the person's able to out wrestle you. Well, that's what it kind of felt like.
Right.
So moving forward with this fight, I have all of that now. I when I walk in the cage on November 19th, I'm just gonna feel like I've been here, I've done this, I was able to soak in that, first experience and really embrace everything. Now I'm feeling like when I fought Carly, I got a chip on my shoulder. I got to experience and see how they were gonna treat me as an athlete coming in, and experience the UFC, and experience this dream that I've been chasing for so long. So going into this fight, I got a chip on my shoulder. I'm very excited, and I know I need to make a statement here for the things that I want to happen to happen.
Sure. No, and absolutely. Like you said, you came out and you defeated Carly, and then you go out to knock out your next two opponents in the LFA. So you certainly made the right impression. It got you to the UFC. You did it the right way. You didn't get to the UFC with a padded record. And I think that's huge. Of course, the MMA podcast is driven by the MMAshark.com. Visit www.themmashark.com. Right now, I'm actually running a promotion, half off your first month's membership. You get access to all of my plays: UFC, LFA, Bellator, PFL, Cage Warriors. If there's fist flying, I'm handicapping it. We're up over 400 units in 2022. So, I've gone from the promoting side of this to the handicapping side, and, I'm good at it. We've been cashing tickets left and right, Charles. It's a different spectrum of it, but I love what I do.
Yeah, I've never been too much of a betting man outside of myself, and
Which you can't do anymore.
I'm getting to that. Being in Michigan this past year, like St. Louis, Missouri isn't a betting state, so I've never really, it was nothing that ever really I paid attention to until I moved here a year and a half ago to train here, and everybody's growing weed out their garage or betting, right?
Right.
So like, cause it's legal here, and
Yeah.
so and now I can, like, I'm paying attention to these things. So I do parlays here and there, and
Hmm.
found it very interesting And maybe, since you're into it, I asked the last guy that interviewed me the same question from the All Stars and podcast. I asked them, what is the legal US documentation when it comes to fighters who are under a 1099 contract? Can they keep us, is that legal as a US citizen for them to keep us from betting when we're not betting on ourselves? Is that a legal thing that they can do? Because I don't think it's fair when fighters can be put out here in front of companies who sponsor them. They
Right.
have sponsor betting things, and they make picks every week for an outside income, especially guys in their first, second, third UFC contract where they're still trying to work their way up the ladder. Is it legal for you to just, oh, you guys can't bet anymore? Nope. And they literally have our social security. So when we go on the betting websites, I was on the betting website to put in a parlay for this past UFC pay-per-view, and it said, oh no, you can't. Like it just didn't let me even do anything with it. I can bet on other sports, but I can't bet on UFC.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I'm like, that doesn't make, to me, first of all, it doesn't feel right. Second of all, is it legal? And third of all, why? I'm not betting on myself. So I have no play or action in what happens. And what's funny is you got people who work for the organization who actually have access to more information than anybody, and
Oh
they
yeah.
can bet, and
Right.
if we go to the UFC PI or if we do anything, they have our little makeup of our bodies, where we're strong, where we're weak. They can see where we're training. They can know if we've had any injuries. So if people like that who have analytics, if they wanted to, they could look into it and they can have a better idea of how any edge in betting works, right? It helps, right? So why are people they allowed to bet and we're not? And we're
Well,
not betting on ourselves. It doesn't make sense to me.
it no, and it totally does not make sense. And not to point fingers, but PFL kind of ruined this. Do you remember when they did the pre-recorded card and announced it as a live card earlier this year?
I do not. Which card was that?
Okay, so PFL did their version of Contender Series, and it was an every Thursday night event, and they pre-recorded a week and then aired it
Okay.
as live the next week, and all the
Yeah.
lines shifted like crazy. Like guys that were plus 200 turned into plus 2,000 because it was a predetermined outcome, and all these fighters, their teammates, their friends, their families knew that they already won the fights and the
Yeah.
betting lines were still out there. So it really put a black eye on the sport. PFL kind of dropped the bomb when they did this. So it's been investigated by the Gaming Commission now for 6 months since this happened. So what they decided, and I knew this was coming out, that
But
MMA.
we're not a predetermined, we're all live.
Oh no, I totally believe me. I have a ton of UFC friends that are
Because
fighters that.
uh one champion does that as well. They pre-record some of their shows as well. Some of their shows aren't live either.
Yeah, but there won't be betting lines on it. So PFL literally had lines for a card that was recorded a week ago where the outcome was known. Books caught on to this because of the amount of action going on the winners on this card, and they nipped it in the butt real quickly. But another thing is, from what articles that I've read and people I've talked to, is prop betting. So, prop betting is huge. Like, you're in your fight versus Zumagulov, for you to win by second round submission is probably like plus 800. And they think that some fighters were purposely trying to get the win in a certain round for, an 8-1 finish. And from what I'm understanding, Dana White was not the decision maker on this. Dana White bets on UFC as far as I know. So
Exactly.
exactly. So, it's shitty. But it's Pete Rose all over again. They're trying to avoid something like that happening.
But we
And
can't bet on ourselves, so why does it matter if
right.
we try to get in a second or not?
It makes no
We still
sense that they're not
have
allowing
still
UFC
have to
fighters to bet.
we still have to go out there and fight another man who's fighting for a paycheck that isn't
Correct.
in it NBA money. So it's not like he's gonna fucking give it to us in a second. We're just
Right.
gonna go out. Fucking Conor
No, I totally get it.
shot. Conor McGregor calls his shot every fucking fight. He done
Yeah.
he done get it every time.
No, I get it. I'm not a fan of the rule. I just saw the rule. I saw the official release that was sent to you, that was sent to all UFC fighters. Why can't you place a bet on, Izzy versus Alex next weekend? What difference does it make? But at the end of the day, your employer is saying, here's what you can't do. And, nobody's
Is that
happy about
is
it.
that is that legal? Because I'm an American citizen. If I'm
Correct.
allowed to bet and I'm not betting on myself, I should be allowed to bet
You should. You absolutely should. Is it
legally. Like
legal?
at the
Yeah,
U.S.
no, I get it. You're over 18 years old. You have a social security number. It's your
Like
money.
fuck what they talking about. Like I should legally be able to do that, right? Now, if a gaming commission comes out and said I just can't bet on UFC fights at all, that doesn't make any sense
Right. No, I
because
agree.
you said we're not pre-recorded. Everything's live. Everything's happening. If you make a bet a week before, an hour before, 2 minutes before the event starts, it's still live. We don't know what
Right.
the fuck is gonna happen.
Yeah. No, and again, the only two things I could think of is what PFL did and prop betting. But again, I'm not a fan of it. I don't agree with it. Totally out of my control. I send out my plays based on the lines and what I think is going to happen, and I'm pretty damn good at it. So, the sports betting obviously is a huge question mark over the UFC. And I do not agree that, a UFC fighter can't place a bet on a fight that is not theirs, and how many fighters want to bet on their teammate? You see somebody put the whole camp in, you want to throw $100 on them because you're rooting for them anyways, it makes it more fun. So, maybe that's
All is
something they look into.
all is gonna happen is gonna be like bootlegging. Like people
Right.
gonna
Give it to
send
your
people
buddy.
send people money and be like, hey, bet this for me. And it's still gonna happen. Like, so it just doesn't make any sense. If people wanted to bet, if people want to bet, they're gonna bet. And if it's legal in the US to do it, they're gonna find a way to do it, even if you
And
pay, you know.
there's a local casino near my house, 20 minutes down the road, and they have a Unibet sportsbook in there. And you walk up to the kiosk and you put your $100 in and select what you want and print the ticket. They don't know who you are, they don't know anything. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of like bootlegging, exactly like you say. No one knows, there's always a way around it. And, for them to come out with it, it's kind of crazy. But there's not a whole lot of attention being drawn to it because at the end of the day, it's still going to happen. And I personally see no issue with it. So
Yeah.
moving on to your training, because I know that you train like a maniac and the results are there come fight night. You're always in tip top shape. You're a 5-round fighter already. So you're doing some training at Tiger Muay Thai?
No, I'm not at Tiger Muay Thai. I'm just still one of their
Or
sponsored
in
athletes.
All right, so in Murcielago in Lansing, Michigan?
Yeah, so I'm in Lansing, Michigan. We train out of Simmons Academy, a wrestling facility. Our team is Murcielago MMA, and our roster includes a plethora of UFC guys.
You got
And
Chaos Williams there, right? And
yeah,
Yogi Buckley?
we got prospects and we got UFC guys. So we got most recently Mondo Gutierrez just fought on
Oh,
Contender. He lost a decision to the 17-year-old kid, but he got a
almost,
fight.
yeah.
He got a fight 20-something days later and just got a knockout. So he's looking to get another quick run back going. We got Chaos Williams, knockout
Chaos
artist.
fight. Chaos is exactly that, man. When he fights, it is chaotic.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that he stepped in the cage, you're gonna feel him. We got Joaquin Buckley. We have Daquan Townsend, who was in the UFC.
He's a veteran. Yeah, he's got like over 30 fights. So that's
He's
definitely a
he's
good
still
training partner.
he's still poking around the gym, giving knowledge and training. He just had a fight recently that didn't go his way. He might have another opportunity to get back in the UFC. It's just depending on if he wants to take it. We have Kenny Cross, who's also an extremely good prospect. He had a we're just waiting on another Contender Series call for him as well. He's had an opportunity on Contender Series and won. He's just been waiting for a call for almost a year now. One of the most athletic guys I've ever met. Working hard, and just loves
And
the
that's why
sport.
it's so important to stay ready. Even Carlos Mota, you finished him. He stayed ready. He got the fight in the UFC on 5 days' notice versus Cody Durden. He didn't look
Yeah,
bad in that fight. Durden just
yeah,
looked a lot better. I was very impressed by Cody's performance in that fight. And Mota takes the fight in the UFC on 6 days' notice and was a favorite. So it's awesome that the younger fighters in the gym, the prospects, have people like you to look up to stay ready, because that phone call could ring. You can get that call today that someone's out for Saturday, and one of your teammates could be on the card with you. So that's definitely an awesome thing.
yeah. Speaking of Durden, we talk about fights to make. That's a fight that I definitely want to get. If something
Yeah.
happens after my fight, I'm focused fully on this fight, going out here and handling business. As long as God willing, everything goes and I'm healthy afterward, I want to try to squeak in one of these last 3 cards of the year. I love to fight, so as long as I'm healthy, if somebody falls out or if somebody has an injury or anything, I'm going to ask them after my fight if I get any mic time. And when I get to talk to Mick a little bit, I'm going to tell him, hey, if anything happens, throw me in there. I don't care who it is. If the fight gets canceled, throw me in there with Cody. He's been asking to fight me. He said he's ready for December. And so he's been talking shit on Twitter. So
Oh boy. I don't think
we
I could
want.
watch that fight. I hate when two of my friends fight each other in the UFC.
So it's a fight that I know. I respect Cody. I think he's a really good grappler, and it'll be my 3rd fight with somebody out of the ATT camp, so I'll be
Right.
pretty well prepared for it. And I'm just really I wasn't impressed at all by his fight with Carlos. It's actually what I told my coach would happen after fighting Carlos and understanding that Carlos was walking into a tough situation, and he was probably not in the best shape, fight shape wise. He was in shape because he trains all the time, but he's more so suited for a fight where you're going to be able to stand up with him and he can get into it. And I just knew that if you watch any of Cody's fights, he closes the ground quickly, and if you're not prepared for that wrestling early, he can set a pace on you. And so I felt like that was going to be the thing that was going to happen, and exactly that what happened is what I expected. And I was hoping Carlos pulled it out, because I just think he has a fun fight style, and I like that he knocks people out at flyweight. You don't see that often.
Yeah, no, it's as a handicapper, I had Cody Durden to win the fight plus 140, and I had him to win by decision at plus 400. So I called a perfect fight on that. Yeah, I figured that was a fight you definitely had eyes on. 2 quick questions, and I'm going to turn it over to you to shout out your sponsors and your apparel company that you started, which is phenomenal. So I have to ask, I've been asking every UFC fighter that's on here. Piotr Jan versus Sugar Show Sean O'Malley. Did you watch the fight?
Yeah, I did.
Who won?
My eyes told me that Peter was going to get the nod just based off of our past experience with judging.
Right.
Based solely on that. If we're in the street though and we fighting,
oh yeah,
Peter didn't look as good, right? So
a lot of damage.
And they both put off damage on each other, but Peter was wearing it a little bit more because he got caught with a knee that cut him open. So, and then if you look at punch stats, that 3rd round, I don't think people realize that O'Malley had to come out there with something on his mind. Like, I have to show people how great I really am. And you look at the punch stats, how much he landed, and just rewatch it. You're like, man, O'Malley came out there with something to prove, and you can't take that from anyone. So it goes down to the 1st round. I thought they would have gave it to Peter for the ground control and the ground.
And he had him rocked early.
But if you keep yourself knowledgeable about the judging, we know recently, like around the time when I fought Motor, they were changing up judging and how they were looking at it and scoring. So right now, damage is king. So
it is. No, it absolutely is. Which brings me to one more that was a very questionable decision.
I'm sorry. I think that Peter didn't he get caught in the first round?
He
Like
got clipped in the first round, but not to the extent that that he clipped O'Malley.
okay,
O'Malley was on ice skates for a couple seconds.
okay, yeah, yeah.
I personally scored the fight 29-28 yawn. People are saying it's the biggest robbery of the year, but
No,
I personally disagree. I think the biggest robbery of the year happened on the last card. Did you happen to catch the Khalil Roundtree versus Dustin Jacoby fight?
I did, but see, what's funny is that's where we're talking about damage again, and that's where we're talking about that and where we differ again. Although I have a little bit of like that's my boy,
How
right?
Khalil is?
That's like my bro, because when I was in Thailand, that's like bro. So he was out there with me that whole time, and we were
I'm a
close.
Roundtree fan. I love his
Yeah.
kicks. He's well rounded.
My justification for that fight is, if you look at the fight, yes, Dustin landed more strikes. Everything that he landed was hit, like it was given. I'm an MMA fighter. Anything you get hit with, you're gonna feel most times. But the things that he was landing on Khalil, they didn't look damaging at all. And they were, a lot of it was pointing, right? Whereas with Khalil was the other end of the spectrum. And he had some wide open moments, but from the moment that fight started, it was damage. And you're gonna know you're in a fight. I'm gonna hurt you, right? And so give us an idea of what are the judges looking at now. This is what I'm talking about again. Damage is king. And if you look at the end of the fight, who was wearing it? Khalil
Third
didn't
round
look.
was all Khalil, 100%.
Khalil looked tired. Khalil looked tired. I think it was 1-1 going into the third. And
Okay.
I felt like Khalil won the third. I thought it was 1-1 going to third. I thought Khalil won the first round. And I thought that Jacoby won the second round. And I thought that Khalil won the third round.
And the crazy thing is one of the judges scored round 2 for Khalil. So that's where the split decision came in.
I didn't think that round was close. And
Yeah.
I was like, but
yeah. Well, hey, and that's why never leave it in the hands of the judges unless you totally dominate. So, Charles, we have 2 minutes left. I want you to give a shout out to any sponsors, anything you want. The mic is yours. Love that you started the apparel company. Have at it.
yeah, man, I started an apparel company. I've had it for about 1.5 years now. You know, as a fighter, you just want to put out your own things, be your own brand. So Levity Apparel is my apparel company, and we're working on finding manufacturers to put out some great products. But
awesome.
I do all the designs and everything. So if anyone's looking for logo or branding or anything like that, they can hit me up. I just want to give a quick shout out to Prime Combat. It's a school out here. Gray Maynard just moved out here. He runs the school. It's a wrestling and basically a lifestyle gym, and also Blend Superfood for sponsoring me this fight. You know, they have some great acai bowls and smoothies, and they're taking care of me this fight. Shout out to my management, Sucker Punch, and Brian Butler and Brian Hamper, and my strength and conditioning coach at the HPI, and my head coach, Joaquin Murcielago with Murcielago MMA, and Nick Simmons with Simmons Academy of Wrestling. I just want to make sure I put that in there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Anybody for any rounds, come out to Michigan. You 135 and under, we got a lot of bodies for you.
That's great. Hey, and I mean, fighters are always looking to cross train. Guys, head over to the Levity Apparel. You know, I'm going to do it. I'm going to support you. So we wish you nothing but the best of the luck on November 19th in your big fight versus Zalis Zumagulov.